Program Director, Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister Patel, Minister of Small Business Development, Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, the Premier of our province, David Makura, the Executive Mayor of Tshwane, Dade Stevens Makhalapa, the Managing Director of Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa, Mr. Neil Hill, government officials who are here with us, including Directors Generals and DDGs, business leaders, members of the Diplomatic Corps, councillors of local government structure, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my pleasure to be here to celebrate the launch of the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone. With just a day before we officially open the second South African Investment Conference in Johannesburg, this special economic zone is yet another affirmation of what I would call growing investor confidence in our country, much as there is some gloom, some doubts, some dismay. But South Africa is still proving to be a very attractive investment destination because we are the continent's largest automaker, and our automotive sector exports are growing steadily and climbing, having recorded 19% growth this year compared to the previous year. Now that is a record of growth, which demonstrates that we are moving forward. And sometimes we are blind to the little and measured and large progress initiatives that we are recording. And sometimes as South Africans we like to bring ourselves down and make ourselves feel dejected and depressed and dismayed. Not only will this automotive SEZ catalyze further growth in a sector that is the mainstay of our national industrial base, it will also bring jobs. It will also help to support local businesses, but it will also help to spur the growth of our city's economy. I am pleased to note that the 18 companies that have been engaged to set up their own operations in this SEZ are already revving up their own engines and are rearing to go. And I'm told that 9 of them have already confirmed to set up factories here by January 2021. Now, if you never thought of anything that's uplifting, the building of a factory, the building of an industrial facility is one of the most uplifting things that you can have in any economy, and it is happening here under our own noses, and we are grateful for that. Now, the projected investment amount, as we've heard earlier from the MEC, that will come to about 3.6 billion rand But more importantly for all of us, this will have the potential of getting 6,700, I repeat, 6,700 direct jobs that will be created here. This is phenomenal. Now, this is phenomenal. You don't just stumble across 6,700 jobs every day. It takes a lot of doing to create a single job. And here, in this place, that is just grass and sand and soil that made my shoes dusty. We are going to create 6,700 jobs. And that fills me with a great deal of pride. I am so encouraged when I hear news like this, because it is immensely encouraging and comes at a time when business, government, labor, and civil society must work together to resolve the twin challenges of slow economic growth and unemployment. This is what we've been talking about since last year, saying that we want to garner more and more investments into our economy so that we can create jobs. Now it is happening in real life. This launch is taking place after a very exciting weekend for our country, when our national team, the Springboks, soared to victory at the Rugby World Cup in Japan. Now, people keep talking about this victory, and they don't talk about having seen me in the scrum. They're not talking about that. And I'm telling them that you must be blind if you did not see me there. The success of the Springbok once again reminds us that we are a winning nation with great prospect. When I spoke to the team just before they went into battle, I eyeballed each one of them and I asked them, "How are you feeling?" Some of them said nervous, and I knew they were lying to me, because as I shook their hands, I could just feel determination, and they've got large hands. I mean, these guys are big, they are huge. Kolisi himself, I mean, his biceps are this big. He's got big hands. And I knew as I shook hands with them that they were going to win. It means that we can be a winning nation and we can attain our goals if we work together. As Siya Kolisi himself said, we can work together as a nation and in partnership with our friends in the international community, many of whom are present here today. We are on a firm path to rebuild our country and return our economy to higher levels of productivity, as well as to transform it to make it much more inclusive so that we can have inclusive growth. Now, I'm glad to have heard the Premier said that this province is committed to ensuring that it becomes a province that is committed to developmental growth. It's a developmental province and with entrepreneurial characteristics. That's fantastic. Now it shows that they are quick learners, and I'm glad that the Premier himself is a quick learner, and having gotten the theory from me to become an entrepreneurial state, they are now putting it into action. I love that. Thank you very much for being such a quick learner, Premier. Now, restoring the confidence of both domestic and foreign investors is the linchpin of our economic reform agenda. Government has prioritized supporting, developing, and expanding our SEZ program. We have said, as the Minister Patel said, we are going to want to utilize SEZs as platforms for generating growth in our economy. Now, special economic zones play a key role in driving our bold new industrial strategy, which is aimed at reigniting economic activity and also unleashing private investments in sectors with high growth potential, including the automotive sector. Now, this Tshwane Automotive SEZ will positively contribute to our industrial strategy by attracting automotive components manufacturing companies and related services. And Mr. Hill, I was very pleased to hear you talk about acceding to up to 60% local content involvement in your own manufacturing processes. This is precisely what we want to hear. This is precisely what we want to see. Because through this, we will be able to give an opportunity for local manufacturers. We will give a huge boost to our burgeoning industrialists to participate in economic manufacturing zones like this. There are a number of benefits for bringing your business to an SEZ, such as preferential corporate tax regime, building allowances, employee tax incentives that we have available, favorable customs regulations, VAT exemptions, and support for capital investment, as well as training. Now, I'm further encouraged by the decision of the Ford Motor Company to work with government to establish the first automotive incubation center adjacent to the Tshwane Automotive SEZ. Once operational, it will support small, medium enterprises, especially black-owned businesses, to perform value-added sub-assembly to Tier 1 suppliers for the motor industry. Now, the development of the Tshwane Automotive SEZ will support the expansion of the incubation center and contribute more broadly to the development of black industrialists. The proposal to establish this SEZ was initiated by the Ford Motor Company to help expand its automotive footprint in South Africa through the attraction of its global suppliers into the country. Now, this ambition was further enhanced by the Gauteng government's plan to developing a new automotive city in Tshwane, and aligns with the South African Automotive Master Plan 2035, which sets out the clear targets for us to increase localization. Now, at this SEZ, the outcome of partnerships is going to be at a very high level, particularly partnerships between Department of Trade and Industry, the Gauteng provincial government, the city of Tshwane, and the Ford Motor Company itself. We really appreciate the way all these entities have worked together to produce this outcome. But more importantly, I want to applaud and appreciate the fact that all of them had this can-do type of approach to things, where they came across obstacles and difficulties, they had this approach of saying, there is no problem without a solution. It can be solved, and we are going to solve it as quickly as possible. Now, that is the type of approach that we want to prevail throughout our country, that all of us, in whatever entity that we are working in, we must have the can-do type of approach that they have displayed. And I'd like us to give them a round of applause for having this type of approach to work. And we are happy that the Ford Motor Company chose the South African government as your strategic partner, as indeed you could have gone anywhere. You could have gone anywhere in any part of the world. We are delighted that you chose South Africa, you chose Gauteng, and you chose Tshwane. And this is the demonstration of a most wonderful partnership. But fellow South Africans, it also talks to something that's also important, that indeed our country is an attractive investment destination. What we need to do is to make sure that we consolidate that attractiveness. We ensure that we can attract investors, because indeed, investors can go anywhere in the world. They can come here and they can move on, and if they find that the offerings that we are putting on the table are not conducive for their investments to take place. I forever remember one investor in one sector, which I shall not name, who came to South Africa and looked around, and they received a lukewarm type of approach, and we did not seem to be too excited about them, and we were not even offering much assistance. And they left, and they went to Brazil, and when they got to Brazil, just Premier, as they arrived at the airport, Executive Mayor, you were talking about from red tape to red carpet. Well, today I didn't see any red carpet. I looked for it, I didn't see it. But Premier, when this investor got to Brazil, as they landed at the airport, they were met by the governor of the province. The red carpet had been laid out. They were immediately welcomed, and they set out precisely the support packages that they have for that investors. And that investor immediately said, we have found a destination for $5 billion, which they immediately invested in Brazil. That $5 billion could have come here, because that was their first port of call. And when they got here, we, in typical fashion, were not very enthusiastic, and we raised a whole number of regulatory barriers, and the investor just said, thank you very much, and they got on their plane, headed to Brazil, and planted a factory for $5 billion, which is exporting a great deal of their products. Now, we've got to change that approach. We've got to have the approach that Gauteng, that Tshwane, that DTI have demonstrated, to have this manufacturing facility established here. This is the way to go, to have the can-do type of approach, where we attract investors, where we bring them in, and where we demonstrate to the Ford Motor Company and others that this is the home, the best home that you will ever get for your investment. Now, this initiative is proof that a partnership between government and private sector is vital in driving the developmental agenda of our country. This special economic zones will further align with our new district development model, which, as Minister Patel said, we call Kauleza, meaning hurry up. Have the can-do type of approach, but hurry up and get things done. It seeks to address service delivery and economic development challenges through the synchronization of planning right across all spheres of government, working alongside our social partners, as in communities, as in labor, as in business, as in government as well. Now, a management company owned by the three spheres of government, with board members also drawn from business, will be established to develop and manage this automotive zone. In early 2018, we announced our intention to mobilize over 1.2 trillion rand of new investments over the next 5 years. This is what we set out as a goal for us, to bring in investments. Many of these investments will be located in various special economic zones across the country, which have to date have already created up to 16,000 direct jobs. Now, this excludes construction jobs, indirect jobs, and additional jobs from confirmed investments where projects are still under construction. We are introducing a new approach in the implementation of SEZs to enhance their impact in our economy. It includes resolving regulatory hurdles that have been obstacles to investors, which Tshwane, as well as Gauteng and DTI have resolved. Processes such as securing environmental impact authorizations, water use licenses, and the like will now be fast-tracked. Now, an issue such as a water license has in our country been taking up to 3 years to resolve, 3 solid years. There is one investor who said, we want to invest up to 10 billion rand, but because we can't get a water license, we are not able to make that investment. Now, in sitting down with labor, business, and the regulator for water, we've been able now to resolve that. And we are saying a water license should not take more than 3 months. And that is what I intend to have done. Now, this is the progress that we are now making, resolving all the regulatory logjams as they were resolved here. As Gauteng has proven that it is really an entrepreneurial province. And being entrepreneurial means that you identify challenges and problems and you resolve them immediately. That's how entrepreneurs operate. You ask Minister Tshwane, who's heading our small business ministry. Entrepreneurs are fast, they are nimble, they are agile, they are fast-footed, and they get things done. Now, this is the psyche that I would like to inculcate in all of us as South Africans, that once a decision is taken, we must immediately move and implement and not sit on decisions. This should also include our civil servants. Sometimes, not all of them, and DTI civil servants prove that they can move fast, they are agile, they are like springboks, they jump, they get things done. But in other departments, we tend to move slowly. And in a way, it's almost like people are afraid to take decisions. Now, I want to unlock the energy of our civil servants. I want to unlock the energy of all of us. Let us get South Africa working and moving. Let us shake this country into shape and move forward. Now, if we can just have that mentality, you know, what I like about Germany, not saying anything against the United States where Ford comes from, the Germans have this simple advert which you often see on CNN, where they say they are the sort of an industrial giant of the world and they get things done. And everybody knows and believes that, yes, you see a German product, it works. And of course, we also know that you see a Ford Motor Company product and it works. I do have a Ford product, by the way, so that you know. And so that is what we need to inculcate. We are a developing country, economy, but we need to be entrepreneurial, as Premier Makura said. And we must go beyond being theoretical and put it into praxis. Now, investors at this SEZ will need to be signed up as we want before an SEZ is inaugurated to operate, and all 3 spheres of government will be involved with the private sector in the planning and the development of infrastructure, as it has happened here. Now, project management units at the Development Bank of Southern Africa will also assist in accelerating the rollout of infrastructure, including bulk infrastructure, factories, and warehouses. So we are getting the engine of our economic behemoth to start moving forward. Now the IDC, which is also here, will assist with the development of business cases for SEZs, securing private investors and conducting due diligences on the investment that needs to be made. Now, this is how this SEZ is now going to be developed. And we're very pleased that it's going to be a modern SEZ. It's going to be an SEZ that other SEZs that we want to start will be modeled against. It will be rolled out in a phased manner on the 162 hectares of land that, as we heard, has been provided by the city of Tshwane, with the mayor here holding the keys to who comes in and who pays what rate and all that. So that's fantastic. We grant you that power, Executive Mayor. Now, based on the investment pipeline that is already in place, phase one of the SEZ on 81 hectares is already oversubscribed, I've been told. This is one of those times where we see what I would call a silver lining on this cloud. It is a clear indication that this SEZ has generated enough and significant investor interest. Now, the government of Gauteng and the city of Tshwane are to be commended for seizing this opportunity, and we invite all other manufacturers to follow suit and help us to increase localization in our economy. Now, manufacturers looking for cost-effective and viable bases to locate should come to this SEZ or this and other SEZs across the country. Now, the existing material benefits of doing so will be multiplied once the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement comes into operation. What this is going to do is to open up new avenues, new markets for the goods and services that our manufacturers and our business people have to sell to various other countries on our continent. On Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we will be opening the second investment conference where domestic and international investors will be present with to look at the vast opportunities that exist in our country. Now, one may have been tempted to think that with the economic situation that confronts our country, we would not be able to attract investors. And we have demonstrated once again that indeed we've been able to attract investors. We are going to have no less than 1,500 potential investors attending the conference. That is a phenomenal success for our country, and we are grateful for the work that Minister Patel and his colleagues have been doing in organizing this conference. Now, the message that we want to communicate is that South Africa is competitive and has proven that it is open for business, and it is also open as an investment destination. We also want to reiterate that we welcome and encourage partnerships between government and the private sector, and the Ford Motor Company itself is valued as a partner, and it's a long-standing investor in our country, and the opening of this plant further cements the good relations between the Ford Motor Company, and I'm also delighted that there is the U.S. Charge d'Affaires who is also here, which also proves that the United States continues to be invested in our country, in South Africa. So we thank you as the United States as well as the Ford Motor Company for being here, because this sends a very clear signal as ever that we are willing to collaborate. I once again want to congratulate those who have brought us to this point for the hard work and for everything that has been done to make sure that this factory does get built. Now, this facility does get built. I look forward to being invited, if I can crack an invitation, when it is finally opened. Just a hint, I'm just hinting that I look forward to that. Let us continue to build a sustainable and inclusive economy that will benefit all our people. And this is the way to go about doing it. And I'd like to end by saying, let us grow South Africa together, and let us work together, as Siya Kolisi said. Because when we do work together, we are great, we are formidable, we are just as good as that Springbok team that completely demolished the English in Yokohama. Thank you very much.